All right, folks, I'm giving this another shot. I'm back again. I know it's been a delay since my last, or been a while since my last video that was uploaded, but been going through a lot, and yeah, just recently got a chance to finally take this gun to the range, put it through its paces, and kind of break it in a little bit. In all fairness and all honesty, full disclosure, I don't have a ton of rounds through it yet. I only ran maybe about 300 rounds through it the other day, and they were all suppressed, by the way. I have not shot it unsuppressed, so I will just give you my initial impressions, what I think about it so far. This is not a full review. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail about this damn thing, but long story short, it's a weird fucking gun, but I kind of like it. So I'm just going to get the negatives out the way real quick here. I'm going to try to keep this short, but I know I got a tendency to ramble. I'm going to try not to. What I don't like about this thing, the fucking ergonomics of it are awful. I don't know how long this gun has been out, but I know it's been out since like the I don't know, I guess about 2000, mid 2000s is probably when the design came about. It's been around, I know of, since at least 2010, probably came out before then. But again, I'm just going off cuff here. I know somebody can Google that shit and get to the bottom of it. But again, this is just off the top of my noggin. It's been around for a while. I know it's on its second generation, or maybe even 2.1 by now, which this is that. Unlike the iconic folding stock they used to have, this one actually has a buffer tube interface where you can screw in an AR style buffer tube, add your castle nut. It's actually got two little holes for set screws, which the set screws are what makes contact with the buffer tube to hold it into place. This is an SBR, so fuck off. But anyway, yeah, it has a Magpul MOE or SL stock on here. At the time that I got this thing, I couldn't find the matching flat dark earth Kriss stock, so I just threw this on there for now. This has the plus 23 two-piece Kriss vector extension, which this is the 9mm FDE variant. This is a 17 round Glock mag with a plus 23 extension on here. Gives it a total round capacity of 40 rounds. Even though these mag extensions look pretty cool, they are pieces of shit, and I'll get into that in just a minute. Again, since this is an SBR, I do have a foregrip on here. Yes, having a foregrip on here makes a huge difference as far as handling and comfort with this thing, because unfortunately, Kriss decided to put all your controls on the left-hand side, save for the safety, which is the only thing on this gun that is ambient. So, exclusively on the left-hand side, you have your little bitty tiny fucking mag release here. You have your bolt catch and bolt release, and your charging handle. You do have two threaded holes here. There's actually two on the other side. You can actually add Picatinny rails or a tri-rail that Kriss sells, or you can even add aftermarket rails. I know Midwest Industries makes one that is actually very nice, but this is how we have it as of now. Not really a complaint, but the trigger on this thing is kind of weird, and let's get into that real quick. So anyway, gun is clear. You have your ambi safety. Safety actuates nicely. It is removable, so you can replace these levers or add aftermarkets, whatever you want to do. But anyway, put it on fire here. We'll just go over the trigger a little bit. Little two-stage trigger. This first stage right here, this first phase, I should say, has almost no spring tension behind it. It's just kind of hanging there almost. You hit an obvious wall right here, and then when you start to pull through it, you get a little bit of creep, little bit of creep, little bit of creep, just a little bit, not that much, and then it breaks. The break is actually pretty crisp, and as far as how the reset looks, you let off just a little bit, and it's pretty tactile, pretty crisp, and then basically once you hit your reset, it goes right back into that wall, and you can pull back through it again, and there you go. Trigger is not really a big complaint. The trigger is fine. It's a little different from what you might be used to, but it's not bad by any means. The biggest complaint that I have with this thing is honestly just the ergonomics. If you've probably seen any other Kriss Vector video on the internet, there's literally no controls on the right-hand side. So for a lefty like me, that fucking sucks. So, Kriss, in their infinite wisdom, decided to make all the controls exclusive to the left-hand side of the gun for all you wonderful right-handed shooters out there. And mag release, a tiny button, easy to actuate accidentally. That is one of the biggest complaints that I have about this gun personally, and that's when I'm shooting it righty. Now, since I'm a lefty, I added this foregrip on here. Again, it made the gun so much easier to control, so much easier to handle. It actually does make a big difference because otherwise you basically have to use your support hand like so. and grip it like that. Or you can do a little C-clamp and, wrap it around the rail, but that's kind of weird. Wasn't very comfortable, especially with this fucking charging handle right here. The charging handle is metal, all right? It's just basically like this metal piece right here. You can see how it's shaped. You have to basically pull it and then cam it open, and actually it cams that bolt open a little bit too. And it doesn't have very far to travel, but because of this whole vector system where the recoil spring is like right in here, and it vectors down, and when the spring compresses it goes down, the charging handle actually requires a fair bit of effort to pull it back. So it's not smooth. Again, it requires a good bit of effort to charge the gun. So that's just something, I guess. One of the stupidest things about this gun, is really fucking stupid if you ask me, is Vector decided to serialize the lower half of the gun, which this is the assembly that houses the barrel, the bolt and carry, the recoil spring, basically the entire gun. See the seam right here. This is the upper, this is the upper, this is the lower. The entire gun is just this part right here, including the barrel. All right, this is essentially the gun. This other part right here is just the upper receiver. This entire part right here is just hollow plastic, basically, so it's very light. But because of that, the front end of the gun, especially this mid part of the gun right here, is like, it's like stupid heavy, okay? Now, not saying this gun is just really heavy and it's just like, nah. It's just like all the weight is right in here, okay? So you feel it. So basically when you're holding the gun, like literally all the weight is going to be literally right where your fucking support hand is, right? So it just gives the gun this really unbalanced feeling to where the point, like, I mean, the gun, the rear half of the gun that's actually in your shoulder, where your trigger hand is and your trigger hand placement and shit, it feels super light back there. And then it feels like you're literally holding the entire gun with your support hand. It's just really hard to describe. It's so unbalanced, and because of that, holding this thing and maneuvering with it is gonna feel unlike any other gun you've ever held. Which leads to my next major complaint. Like, you have to learn a completely different manual of arms with this gun because, again, all the controls are on the left-hand side. Training with this thing will be unlike anything you've ever used. So getting proficient with it, of course, will require a lot of practice because there's nothing else like it. And it's so fucking goofy that, yeah, you can get proficient with it and you can probably run it like a fucking champ. But you have to train yourself to do so. And, yeah, I mean, that just leads me to kind of like my overall thoughts about this gun. It's an awesome range toy, and it's fun as hell to shoot. Don't get it twisted. I actually like this gun. I actually kind of like it, even though it's fucking weird, okay? It's just so different and so unlike any other PCC out there, and the actual shooting experience is actually kind of pleasant, which is why I'm actually doing this video with the suppressor on it, because it makes a pretty cool suppressor host. It gets really dirty really fast, especially suppressed. But in the limited number of rounds that I ran through it, it functioned flawlessly, save for my second biggest complaint, which was this piece of shit. So if you look closely here, I actually had to epoxy this fucking thing together because it broke. And when I say it broke, it literally fucking broke. So this is a 2-piece mag extension, okay? These things are not really that cheap either, considering what they are and how they feel. But Kriss sells these magazine extensions. This is a plus 23 extension. So you take your 17 round Glock mag, you add this piece of shit onto it, boom, you got 40 rounds. Sounds great, but it's 2 pieces. So I'm not going to take it apart because, again, it's fucking glued together. And it's really difficult to take apart anyway. But essentially, you take this mag, and you see how the magazine extension is a lot fatter than the magazine. That is because you take the mag and you insert it through the bottom of this little extension, and then it falls through this opening, which would be right here, and then it just stops right here because it has these 2 little tabs that catch it, one right there and one right there, and it's basically held into place by these tabs in the mouth of this magazine extension. Okay, problem is it's 2 pieces and it's not very fucking sturdy. So what happened was I was doing some mag manipulation and drills with this thing, just trying to get proficient with it. And I had a fully loaded mag, and I dropped it by accident. It fell from about waist high onto a hard floor. The thing shattered and blew up. It literally exploded, okay? What happened was, on a loaded mag, these two tabs that hold this extension into place just cracked. They just fucking flew off the gun, okay? And the whole thing just shattered. It broke into a million pieces. The spring flew out, the follower flew out, and a bunch of little pieces of plastic just flew all over the place, okay? So I took some late fucking JB Weld, all right? And I JB welded this bitch back together. And it functioned, but I'm going to call out to another YouTuber video, and that is the Garen Thumb video. If you watch Garen Thumb's Kriss Vector review, he had an issue with these things to where the follower and the spring would basically bind up somewhere within the inside of the mag body, and rounds would just be rattling around inside the mag, and they would just literally start falling out, and he would have failures. That exact same thing happened to me with this magazine, and that's before it got broke. After it broke, I mean, it still essentially did the exact same thing. So I could not recommend these at all. Honestly, I think these are shit. I think they are trash. Now, when I used the standard 17 round Glock magazine, this thing fed and functioned flawlessly. I had zero issues with this gun using this mag, which leads me to believe the gun is actually pretty reliable. It seemed to work just fine for me. Again, limited number of rounds, but the magazines, and particularly these 23 round, or again, this is the 9mm. It's different for the other calibers, but these Kriss Vector extensions, no, trash, absolute trash. So with the optic setup that I have on here, I'll just show that in a little more detail. This is a old optic that I have on here. I'm not wasting money and putting like something nice on here because this is just a range toy. But I had to put a riser on here, and that is because this is an absolute height optic mount that I have on here. There's an ADM mount with a Holosun HS406, I think it was. I've had this thing forever. It still works. It works great, actually. It's like an Aimpoint Pro knockoff, and it has shake to wake. This thing is probably like 6 years old at this point, and it's still holding up. I'm only on my second battery, by the way, which is pretty fucking awesome. But anyway, I got this thing on here, and the problem that I had was that the height over bore is just so low that you have to literally squash your face down on the stock just to get a sight picture. Now, it does come with these relatively decent flip-up, back-up polymer sights. It comes with those from the factory, by the way, which is a nice touch by Kriss, because a lot of guns don't even come with sights these days. But they're so low because of this 2.1 or 2.0 model design that they have. The previous stock that they had actually had a lower comb on the stock, and it came down to like right here or so. So you actually got a proper sight picture and height over bore because of that with your optics. This thing, on the other hand, it's just too low. It's just too low for comfort. I don't care for it. I kind of fixed it with a Band-Aid here by using this 1/2-inch riser, and it made it way more comfortable. And then I have a single point little Picatinny sling attachment right here. And for a single point sling, that actually works perfectly fine for my use. You have this generous sized ejection port, and as you can see, there's a lot of dirt and grime there from the action that I had the other day. Yeah, this thing gets really dirty, by the way. It is not a delayed blowback design. It's actually just straight blowback, but because of the vectoring design where the bolt goes back and then it goes down, I mean, some people consider that delayed blowback. I don't, because it's still just, blowback that's operating the action, even though it is going down. I mean, it gets really dirty. It does have a 1/2x28 threaded muzzle. I've got a dead air key mount muzzle brake on there, so I can throw this suppressor on. As you can see, it's a little dirty. But yeah, so shooting the gun and the actual experience behind the gun is pretty pleasant. Very minimal recoil for a blowback gun. It's a soft shooter, noticeably soft shooter, and it actually suppresses very well. I'm a lefty, so one of the things that I usually have to deal with any suppressed gun is I get a lot of fucking gas to the face. This thing, zero gas to the face, zero gas to the face, zero gas to the face. It is, for me, very pleasant to shoot. Can't say that about a lot of the guns that I shoot, but as a lefty, very nice. Recoil impulse, very soft. I have a KP9. I've got, the PTR9, MP5, whatever, CZ Scorpion. I got an AR, a couple other blowback guns. This thing is definitely near the top when it comes to the recoil impulse and just, the overall softness that it has. It is very pleasant to shoot, I will say that. And because of that, that's kind of why I like it so much, because it suppresses well and it's a soft shooter. Personally, I found the gun to be very accurate as well. I shot it mostly at about 10 to 15 yards. And at that distance, I was getting roughly fist-sized groups, maybe baseball-sized groups or so, somewhere in that ballpark. Needless to say, at that distance, just shooting bulk range ammo, that was pretty damn good. I also shot some 150 grain Federal Syntec through it. Essentially, this stuff right here, very quiet with the can. Very, very quiet. Not very much port pop, at least none that I could tell. And it suppressed very well. Again, hardly any gas to the face. And it was just overall a joy to shoot. So let me just try to wrap this video up here. I wasn't trying to go too long, but how do I feel about this gun? Again, very limited experience with it so far, but I will say that it is a joy to shoot. The shooting experience of this gun is very interesting, and because of that, I honestly will probably keep it. That's one of the things I was kind of wrestling with at first, because it has so many ergonomic shortcomings that I was like, man, do I even want to keep this thing, or just flip it or get something else or just get rid of it? And I think I've kind of decided to keep it, just because shooting it was kind of like the highlight of the experience with the Vector. And I mean, I really have a mixed opinion about this thing, because honestly, compared to a lot of other guns, especially PCCs and its price range, and a lot of direct competitors like the Scorpion, KP9, MP5 clones, and all that, it is definitely an inferior gun to pretty much almost all of them. Okay, if you were to press this gun into a serious role and use it for something in which your life may depend on it one day, I would not recommend that. I think there's way better options for that. Even an AR9, for that matter, I'd probably pick that over this. There's just so many ergonomic shortcomings with this gun that I would really not use it for anything other than a range toy. But in the role of a range toy, it's really fucking fun. It is honestly a very fun gun to shoot. Turns a lot of heads at the range, makes a great conversation piece, and the actual shooting experience, once you get behind it and you start pulling the trigger, is fun. It is a pleasant gun to shoot. It's just the ergonomics of it. Manipulations, mag changes, using the charging handle, clearing malfunctions, that part of the gun, the really important shit, that's where this gun falls short in a lot of ways, okay? And again, these magazine extensions suck. Don't buy them. These, or, just one-piece mags, were perfectly fine. I would recommend, if you were interested in one of these things, stick with factory Glock mags, or any one-piece extended mag. These two-piece pieces of shit right here, leave those alone. Run from them. Anything else probably will work fine, I would imagine. Taking down the gun and taking it apart, not very difficult. You have 4 pins, 2 right here, which actually hold the guts of the gun together. And then you have 2 up here, 1 right here, 1 right here, that holds the upper and lower together. Again, very generous sized ejection port. The one thing about this gun, from a technical perspective, that I don't really care about, I guess I'll just show it to you. So you can pop these 2 pins apart and actually take the guts of the gun out, which is this is the bolt carrier assembly. And that's, yeah. Anyway, so this is your bolt, right? Bolt's kind of small, as you can see. It's kind of small. That's one of the first things I really noticed when I took this thing apart, right? Bolt is kind of small. And if you can see, the extractor, this is the 9mm, of course, the extractor is also very small. Now, compared to a lot of other PCCs on the market, this extractor looks just honestly downright anemic, okay? Not to say that it doesn't work, not to say that this is a flawed design, but I'm just saying from a visual perspective, just studying a lot of these guns side by side, the extractor on this thing is fucking tiny. So why do I worry about a tiny extractor? Well, this is a CZ Scorpion Evo bolt carrier group, right? Massive assembly compared to the Vector, all right? So that big ass chunk of metal right there, let's see if I get that's the extractor on an Evo, okay? And as you see, that thing is absolutely massive. This is all the extractor, okay? Absolutely massive extractor on the Scorpion Evo, okay? Side by side. That's kind of what I'm talking about. See what I'm getting at? Now, these are 9 millimeters. These are both competitors to each other on the market. You be the judge. Not to say this is a design flaw of the Vector, but it's just like, I mean, like for something that your life might want to depend on, or like damn, I can't even talk. For something one day that your life might have to depend on, like for a weapon that you might stake your life on, whether it be a bedside gun or a go to war gun or whatever. I mean, you want something that's going to work, and you want something that's going to extract reliably. And I know I've heard some things on the internet that Kriss has actually updated their design and actually made their extractor better. Ooh, but just to put it in perspective, uh, you know, this is what Kriss is up against. So as far as the bolt and the carrier and this whole assembly goes, I'm holding the camera with one hand and I'm trying to film this, so just bear with me here. But basically, you got your bolt here, right? And again, this is a tiny fucking bolt. It just basically rides in these rails. Oh, Jesus. Rides in these rails like so. Okay. And then it basically rotates and vectors and does all that cool shit while it's riding in these little rails right here inside the receiver of the gun. So quickly disassemble the gun just so you can see what it looks like in the guts. This is essentially the serialized firearm piece right here. As you see, serial number right there. Baffling decision for Kriss to do that. I don't know why they serialized that part as opposed to that part. It just made more sense to do this, but anyway, okay. So, yeah, this is where all the weight of the gun is. All the internal components are in here. The barrel assembly, trunnion, whatever that thing is, charging handle, everything is right here. So the vast majority of the weight of the gun is right here. This part right here, the actual polymer frame, is extremely lightweight. As you can see, the downward swinging hammer, which is a very interesting design. And so yeah, because of that, this gun is it's balanced so awkwardly. It's very front heavy and very mid heavy, or mid front, I guess I could say. The gun feels really weird in hand, especially once you shoulder it. And it is definitely heavier than I think it should be. Compared to something like an MP5 or even like a Scorpion Evo, it just feels like it weighs way more than it needs to. So we're back together now, obviously. And yeah, I mean, just interesting thoughts about the gun. After, some limited usage, how do I feel about it? Again, I do like it. It will probably remain in my collection. I will probably, continue to tweak it and maybe enhance it a little bit going forward. But this will never be a go-to gun. This will honestly never be anything more than a range toy and a conversation piece for me. But I do feel that it makes such a strong impression in the shooting experience and just honestly the overall fun factor, just using it. That is probably the only reason why it will stick around. But for anything, that your life may depend on it one day, pressing it into a role for home defense, something like that, honestly, I would not recommend it at all whatsoever. Again, the gun did suppress very well. It ran 100% using these mags. Had some issues with that mag, but I do think the design itself is fairly sound. I know that some people have probably had reliability issues with these things, at least with the older variants from what I've heard. The newer models, like this one in particular, I don't really hear as much bad stuff about it, but again, this is just an example of one, and your mileage may vary, of course. But with this gun, I would say if you're interested in it, I honestly would maybe temper your expectations a little bit. For a range toy, perfectly fine. For a collector's piece, perfectly fine. If you just want a cool gun to, stun on the pores on the gram with, shit, go for it, I guess. But, I mean, for a nightstand gun, bedside gun, for a truck gun, I probably would not recommend it at all for that role whatsoever. Could you do it? Yes. Should you do it is the question. Because honestly, I think there are better guns for that role. And, but yeah, for something that is just, you just want to have fun with it, plink around at the range and fuck off with your friends, this is a cool gun. It's a cool gun. With that said, If you have any, comments, want to share your feelings about this gun, or maybe you're an owner and you want to share your experience, go ahead and drop it to the comments. Appreciate you for watching. I know I tend to ramble a bit. Some of these videos come off probably more as like a vlog or a video log than they do like reviews and shit like that. But hey, that's just my style. I'm trying to save a little time here by not editing and doing post production and all that. You're just getting raw, unfiltered thoughts most of the time. So that's what we're doing today. Anyway, appreciate you watching. Have a good one, and y'all take care.